There we go.
How's it
Right on.
going?
Fantastic. I'm doing very well. It's very nice to meet you.
Yeah,
Uh,
you as well.
yeah, thank you for joining me today, and congratulations on winning the Elegant Literature Award.
Thank you, man. It's quite the honor.
It's fantastic. I really liked your story, obviously.
Yeah, thank you.
So pretty much how it'll go is I want to talk to you about your story, hear a little bit about you and your writing journey, and just talk about your writing process and stuff like that. Yeah, congratulations again. How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel awesome. Yeah, it was a surprise and a welcome uh experience. Yeah. I watched the video of one of the previous winners and had the same experience where I like saw that it was published, looked it up, and was like, oh, I didn't hear anything, so it probably didn't get accepted, and was able to look through, and then was excited to see that it was published. And then I didn't even see the contest winner part until I went down to the judges' comments.
Oh, no way.
But yeah, it was super cool, man. Really
Yeah,
appreciate.
that's great. It's a good thing you read the judges' comments. You might have missed it and received it
Yeah,
a few
exactly.
days later and gone,
Yeah,
what?
yeah,
I
awesome.
always I always double check to make sure I put the contest winner there under your name, because sometimes I'm kind of like, what if I forgot and nobody knows who won? They have to go check out the judges' comments. So
Yeah,
yeah, double checking the work. That's great. Yeah, so I'm pleased that you were able to have that experience. So for those of you watching who may not know, Connor Smith wrote A Tale of a Fish, which won the Wild Waterways issue of the Elegant Literature Award contest and magazine. So if you haven't read it, pause the video now, go read it, and then come back. Everything will make a lot more sense if you know what we're talking about. But for those who do you want to just give us, a quick, 1-2 minute summary of what your story was about
yeah.
in your own words rather than me?
Well, I mean, the story's pretty quick. You could probably read it in 1 or 2 minutes. But yeah, what is it? The child's reminiscences growing up in the Midwest and discovering Jesus in her own way, or his own way. I guess the gender is not really given of the when I was writing it, I was thinking it was from like a young girl's perspective. I showed it to my mom to read, and she thought it was a young boy. And I guess it doesn't really matter. It's kind of up to the reader.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I kind of pictured it as a young boy, but you're right. It doesn't matter. It's not important to the story that you're trying to tell, right?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, there's tragedy, there's loss, and there's magic and curiosity at the end of it all.
Yeah, that's a nice sort of beautiful description without giving anything away.
Yeah. But we can give it all away here too. I don't care.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about it because I mean, presumably people have paused the video and gone to read it now, or are watching this because they've already read it and they want to get to know you a little bit as the author. So I wanted to know, what was the inspiration behind the story? Like, are you from the Midwest, or where did this come from?
Originally, I am. I grew up in Colorado, but I was born in Missouri, and I got a bunch of family out there. So that did, like, that was the setting for me. Yeah, honestly, I just I kind of have a little bit of like a knack for like automatic writing, and so I didn't put a lot of thought into the story prior to. I kind of read the prompt and just started writing, and most of the story came out in like one burst. And then so that was sort of the story that I, it appeared, and so I wrote it, and then I just kind of little edges and stuff. But that's a lot of how I write. Is I never like sit down at the computer and intend to write. Most of my writings are like written on napkins and stuff, just like in the burst of the moment when I have to find whatever's around me.
When the inspiration strikes you, you gotta roll with it, but you don't sort of get up at 8 o'clock every day and sit down at the computer.
No, I never do that. So this was kind of cool just to like have the sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a framework. And that's what I liked. Like I don't know if you're familiar with the Alipo, I believe it's called, the like group of, they're like European writers. Specifically,
How do you spell that?
I think it's Oulipo.
All right.
Italo Calvino is like one of my favorite authors, and he was amongst this group, and one of their things was like putting restrictions on themselves in order to sort of unlock different levels of creativity. I think there was one guy who wrote a book completely without the letter E.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That would be a nightmare. Oh
Yeah.
my God. I could not imagine doing something like that.
Mhm.
I haven't read it, but I want to. So they
Yeah,
put restrictions on themselves to kind of like force themselves into
yeah, having like infinite freedom of expression is cool, but when you put just a couple little locks on that, it just directs you in a different way. And that's what this prompt was for me, and that's what's cool about the what you got going here with elegant literature is it's not like super strict, like write this prompt with this character doing this, but just those couple things, like having a word buckle and something to do with water. It limits you, but you still have infinite like creative freedom there.
Yeah, I mean, I receive stories for that issue and for every issue pretty much, from all sorts of like historical to the fantasy to the science fiction to Western. Like people roll it to horror, people roll with it however they want. And some people are, you can tell they really didn't care about the theme at all. They had a story they wanted to tell, and they included some water in the word buckle to make sure it fit the prompt, but
Totally.
told the story they wanted to tell. And other people really, really took the prompt and went dumbed down as deep as they could into it. So it's really cool how much variety you get from just a little bit of restriction. It's cool that you say that. There's a concept that I was learning about called brain steering. And it's basically the idea where like what we usually do is we talk about brainstorming and trying to like come up with all these ideas. And this is more for a corporate setting rather than for writers, but I'm sure it applies to both. Like there's cross application, but basically if you get a bunch of people in a room and brainstorm without any just total freedom, they'll tend to come up with a lot of crap. They'll stay very shallow at the very top level, and often only one or two people will really contribute anything meaningful. Whereas if what they call brain steering is how to think about it differently, you put parameters around it, like you're talking about, a bit of restrictions, and the human mind does way better thinking about things. Like if you just have to come up with a totally original idea, it's very difficult. But if you can come up with an almost original idea in these parameters, it's way easier for you to get your mind around it and start exploring different avenues. So
I just sort of had this my brain was fresh with that sort of technique, because my buddy and I have this music project, and he's down in Athens, Georgia. I'm living in Biddeford, Maine right now. And so he would record all of the music down there and ship it to me just with a song title. And within 24 hours, I would write and record a song to that. So to his music based on the title that he gave me, and just had to have it to him by midnight.
And you're still listening to the music, like you didn't just get the title and then.
Yeah. No, so I'm writing it to the music then. But that was a way of approaching songwriting that I had never done before either.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I think it worked out really well. We have a project called Loom, and this album's called Wool, and it'll be coming out at some point in the next couple months, hopefully.
So after you did that, when you kind of both listened to the song as it was finished, you sent it back to him with your writing, and do you sing as well? Is that? Yeah.
So I do all the vocals on this project.
Yeah. And so after you sent it back to him, how did he find, because he probably had something envisioned in his mind, like he made the music and then he had an idea where you might take it and probably wondered if you might go that direction or somewhere totally new. So once you got back together with the finished product and talked it over, how did you guys feel about it?
We were both like thrilled with it. Yeah. He's he was super stoked on what I did with his sort of creations, and he's an old buddy of mine that from Colorado, and I've always loved all the bands that he played in. So it was cool for me because I was already, I already loved the music that he's made for years. So we're able to sort of like inspire each other in certain ways. There wasn't a lot of changes. Every once in a while he would have like a little critique, and we'd chop a couple little things and twist them around. But for the most part, the songs are completely as they were in that quick little 24-hour creation period.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So anyways, that was my technique for then approaching this as well, was sort of, there's my little limitation, let the creativity flow, and not try to think too hard about it. Because once something is manifested, whatever it may be, you just sort of, you accept it for what it is and let it grow a little bit.
Yeah. So how did you get into automatic writing? Like, was this just something you always did, or was it something you experimented with and found worked very well?
I guess it's sort of how I've always written. I can't think of a time that I like really sat down and tried to write to something, at least successfully. I've sat down to try to write and gotten nothing, and more times than not, it just sort of, it's how it comes out. Over the last like couple of years, just like a year ago, I finished writing the longest piece that I've ever worked on, and I'm still hoping to like find a publisher for that. But it's this like probably 80 pages or so. It's called Cosmo and Ruse, and that's the first time I've ever like come back to something and continued to add into it. But even most of that was written in the same sort of like spontaneously, and then having all of my notes together, then I'll sit down at the computer and type them up, and maybe I'll like, as I'm typing, I'll get the little creative worm or whatever and write and connect things together. But it's really hard for me actually to sit down and just try to write and try to create something. Most of it comes spontaneously.
That's very interesting. So most of your projects are sort of just one session things that maybe you come back and edit a little bit and tweak up a little bit later, but most things are one session. And then is that am I getting that right?
Yeah. Even with so I have like I have a music project called Aleph Eris, and I have a couple albums, and it's the same with songwriting. I never sit down with a guitar and like decide to write a song. It comes out pretty spontaneously, and I find it very difficult to finish writing songs if I didn't finish them in that initial burst.
Oh, okay. How do you, and will this just be at any time? Like you're out to dinner with, family or something, or you're at a formal occasion, or, God forbid you're at a funeral and you just have to write this song and you have to, how do you approach that? Do you just go off by yourself, or?
Yeah. So sometimes it's like, it's at inappropriate social times, when, I just have to like, usually that's with writing, not so much songwriting. But yeah, just I gotta grab a pencil or a pen or whatever is lying around and let it pour out real quick. And I used to just have this feeling a lot. And I spent a lot of time in the woods, hiking around with my dog. So a lot of the inspiration comes there. And I used to always tell myself, like, I would have this thought and I would be like, oh, that's for this book that I'll eventually write. And I just knew it. It was like this sensation. And I would know when that like welling up was like, oh, this is for that book. The same at night, if I'm like falling asleep, sometimes I'll get this idea. And if I don't write it down, it's just lost.
But more than just the idea, do you have to actually write out the whole scene or piece?
Yeah.
You're going to sleep, but you can't, for me, if I'm walking in the woods or I'm falling asleep, the same thing. A lot of my ideas happen there. I'll pull out my phone and make a note, and then I'll revisit it later. But for you actually have to get up and write it, the whole thing.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny. And sometimes I only have my phone, and I still have a flip phone. So
Like
like,
the you have to tap 3 times to get to the right letter.
yeah, exactly. It can be real hard when like the thought is going faster than you can type it, and sometimes it'll just halfway through disappear. So
Yeah, no.
it's best if I have the pen and paper, and just like interruption is like the worst thing. Like if something interrupts me, then it flows away and there's no getting it back.
Right. So you like the classical idea of a writer walking around with a notebook and a pen in their pocket, just ready to take notes and write down
Yeah.
things as the muse strikes like lightning, eh?
Yeah, I don't sit down based on the clock. Like it's never writing time. Usually writing, like it takes me by surprise. So I've learned to carry pen and paper at all times just in case.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a story of a time when this inspiration struck and it was like a very poor time for you to go off and do this, and I don't know, maybe you angered a partner or something it's an example of something funny or tragic, I don't know.
Yeah, nothing that I can think of right off the top of my head. But I'm sure if you ask my girlfriend, she could probably tell you sometimes that
Yeah,
it's an inappropriate time for me to go into the creativity zone.
first time meeting the parents, shake the hand and run off into the corner.
Yeah.
But I mean, so is your partner, is your girlfriend supportive of your writing and your writing habits? Like if you have this, if this is the way it works for you, sometimes you got to run off. Are they ready to sort of explain it to the group of people that you're standing around?
Yeah, she's got a pretty good understanding of me at this point. That it's not I do this in life too. Sometimes I just have to I do a lot of traveling, and sometimes I got to just get up and go. And
The Irish goodbye, I've heard.
yeah, it's how I've been for a long time.
Awesome. So I want to know a little bit about your writing journey in terms of like, was it a childhood thing? Have you been doing this forever? What put you on to writing, and how have you kind of progressed?
I think reading put me on to writing. I've always been a super avid reader since I was a little kid. And I still am. I read every day. There's a period of time there where I really I couldn't even socialize with people unless I had gotten my reading in for the day. If I hadn't read, for a couple hours, then I would just be thinking about whatever book I'm working on at the time. I did
understand that. And so this works a little bit different than the writing, because you're not in the middle of conversation, have to pull out your book and read a chapter or anything, but you got to get it done before you're ready to socialize.
Yeah, totally. And I used to do shit like that. So I don't know if I should.
You can. It's okay.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I used to do that. I'd be reading at a party, crack my book out. I read while I'm walking a lot too. So yeah, that's always been, books are just a huge influence on me. And I used to write stories as a kid, nothing like super, I don't know. I wrote a lot. Yeah, I don't know. As I got into, words just have such this immense power over me. And I always felt that it would be so nice to inspire even just one person the way that I've been inspired by someone else's words, just to be touched by the power that a single sentence can hold. That spell of words has always been super real for me. So yeah, I've always I've had that sort of dream of inspiring someone else with those words. Yeah, reading has been the gateway drug to writing.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's same way for me. Reading just constantly eventually led to writing. Well, that's good. That I mean, it's. I'm sure that now your words have touched somebody. You've won the contest. I mean, I obviously like them enough to choose them as the award-winning story. Write some comments about them. I hope you found the comments good.
Yeah, no, it was
better word.
It was super. It was validating, I guess. This is the first thing I've ever entered into anything. So.
Is this the first piece of work you've ever published anywhere? Yeah. I mean, for a professional rate, sure, but have you published other things in maybe local papers or anything like that?
No, never. I've I've always written. I like 10 years ago, I had this little thing of like sort of like philosophical ramblings, I guess. And I would print it out at the library and like hand it out to people. But you know, that was, yeah, this is the first time I've ever submitted something and gotten even I've never even gotten a rejection in return. So
Oh no.
it's great to yeah, to get that sort of, you know, positive feedback. And yeah, I'm glad that it spoke to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me personally, it was the character's voice coming through. Like I think, I mean, I'm not from the Midwest. I haven't spent much time there, but for me, it was recognizable right away that that was sort of where they were, kind of
Mhm.
what I expect the culture is like there. Like within a couple sentences, it was obvious because of, I think you got the dialect that came through without
Mhm.
being overplayed. One of the big things with dialect is it's very easy to overdo it, and
Yeah,
you know, too many apostrophes, too many cutting things, and then it becomes difficult to read rather than a enhancement of the character's voice. But it's hard to read. It's hard to, you know, it's hard to enjoy it so much. But the way you wrote the character, for me, made it sound like, you know, it plays perfectly. It was easy to read. I grasped who they were, and that really kind of stuck with me right from the first line, carried all the way through. Their voice was powerful for me.
yeah. That's great. I'm glad that it came through like that. I definitely like, you know, I've when you read like Steinbeck or Faulkner, there's a lot of that, like they're masters of that, but there's a lot of that sort of apostrophes and changing of words or whatever. And I feel like you can read other people trying to do that technique, and it like seems very obvious. So I specifically wanted to like not have it be distracting,
Hmm.
but it's also kind of freeing to write in that sort of like voice of a child. It also, like in your comments, you had mentioned the run-on sentences, which I've been known for. You know, I get an idea and I just ride it out, and you kind of get a little excuse if you put it into the voice of the character.
Yeah, and especially as a child too, like I could imagine them just, you know how kids are like motors, they just don't stop and they just keep
Yeah,
going and going and going, and like they run out of breath and they're not even finished their sentence. And it's interesting to see that it kind of stems from your automatic writing and the way you're getting into the flow of it, and it's just a more of a byproduct of your process that fit very well with my impression of the character.
yeah.
uh, yeah, it's neat to see that, you know, not specifically intended, but worked very well for me. So where did the character come from? Like, is it based on anyone, any situation specifically that you know, from your past or anything like that? People you know?
Not not necessarily. I have had an unfortunate amount of death and tragedy in my life that I feel like comes out in all of my art, whether it's songwriting or writing in general. Death is always this present specter, but also joy and magic. And you know, uh, I have a lot of religious family. I grew up around a lot of like religious people that seem to not really have like a depth of spirituality there. And so I felt like you could like with this character, she's talking about something that's closer to God than the people that are teaching her what God is. Um, and I feel like that's maybe a theme in my life and with the people around me that sort of don't necessarily subscribe to a specific dogmatic system, but are maybe a little closer to this like essence and beauty and wonder that's in the world.
Right. Yeah, and I can see that, and how some people are maybe subscribing to the religion and going through the motions without, you know, firmly having that personal connection to it, just because that's the way they were raised and the culture they're in is expected of them to go through these motions. And
Yeah,
that's why it's kind of more shallow, where somebody like your character is, you know, finding something that's more personal to them and like a deeper connection with
Mhm.
the deity figure because of the traumatic experiences in their life. They're kind of digging deeper into it.
Yeah, or just, I mean, I don't know. I really didn't give I didn't give a whole lot of thought uh going into it. Like I said, it just sort of, that's the story that came out. So it's kind of fun to come back and like pick and like try to see where it
Read
what.
into it more than you would when you were writing it.
Yeah, but it is, there's a consistency across my writings for sure, that are, you know, my love of nature, my expectations of like the inevitability of death, and also to approach it with that sort of like the carefree nature of the child wondering, like, was her sister looking for God or Jesus at the bottom of the river, or did she just not want to be around anymore, you
Yeah,
know?
that was a haunting line for me because it's such a childlike simplicity. It's like they're talking about death and suicide in a way that most adults wouldn't casually reference.
Yeah.
That dance around the topic and be sensitive to what's going on, whereas the child is just, this is what happened. I wonder why.
Yeah.
And that kind of was like, some of the lines hit me pretty hard in that because you were able to come at it from the child's innocent and more blunt
Mhm.
sort of style. Mhm. So I'm sure that people watching this are curious and waiting for us to get to this topic. Is where did Jesus as a mermaid figure come from?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a great question. I don't know. I've never thought of Jesus as a mermaid before, but
I'm not sure that anyone has. That might be one of those truly unique ideas.
yeah. I love like fantasy and mythology, and I especially like really, I love magical realism, and like, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, especially, where he introduces these magical elements in such a like completely dry, sort of just like, this is every day happening, and it doesn't have to be like C.S. Lewis like opening a door to Narnia.
Mhm.
You can have little aspects of Narnia open up around you all the time. So that I wanted to have that little element of fantasy and magic, while still being just, casual reality occurring. And for me, it just sort of made sense to have the character encounter something magical and not question it, to put it in the terms of like, oh, what have I been told? I've been told about Jesus and the whole mythos of the Bible or whatever. So to experience something that's so outside of day-to-day ordinary reality, to obviously then be partitioned into like what I've been told, the only things that could be magic in the world are A, B, C, and D or whatever. So
Yeah,
it must be
it
Jesus,
must be.
So yeah, that was my thought process there.
Yeah, very interesting. And you, from the author's perspective, it's interesting talking with you about some of these things because with the automatic writing and the way you've described your process, asking you for meaning behind some of these things seems like maybe it's not.
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of cool. Now I get to discover some of the meaning there as well, just by talking about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I can. There's always meaning, even if you didn't mean it to be, because we receive stories differently. So of course, there's going to be more meaning in the story for me that maybe you didn't intend. Even when authors intend all of their meaning and do their best to sort of plot it out, right? There's still
Yeah.
going to be meaning for specific readers that are different from what they planned on or intended, and for different readers, it's going to be different. So it's interesting. It's almost like you're getting to find out more meaning from your story just by talking about it and looking back.
Yeah.
But also it came from your mind, and I'm sure there's connections happening in there, maybe even on the subconscious level, that have meanings that you haven't explored or didn't think about too hard while you were doing the writing. Is that kind of how it works for you?
Yeah. What you just said reminded me of this. I believe his name is Antonio Porcia, but he wrote little like fragmentary, almost like aphoristic writings. And he has a line that's, I know what I've given you. I do not know what you have received.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess it's kind of like that. And to get it back to me, like I wrote something, handed it out into the world. I don't know what you've gotten out of it, and then presenting back to me, all of a sudden I get to take something else out of there that
And that'll be different from what I had and what you had originally. It's very interesting that way. And when I was writing my comments for it too, I was hesitant. I was trying to be a little bit delicate in some of the things I said, because I myself am not I'm not religious. And
yeah, me neither. I'm not like I don't come from this isn't like an evangelical background, like fighting Jesus or something.
Well, and that's the thing, is because I didn't even, I didn't have a name ascribed to the author when I was writing. I write the comments before I find out who won. And so it's impossible for me to sort of look it up and get a clue on how to be. So I didn't know if you were, a very religious person who was exploring this or denouncing it, or a non-religious person kind of. And it's because I have no idea if the story is verging on blasphemy or not, or how to approach it in the writing. But I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it was, a great story. That's why I chose it. Yeah. So
I do. I love that. Like, I'm touched by the theme of God, whatever that may be, and I like reading. I read a lot of like philosophy, and I like the old religious texts just because it feels like someone at some point was talking about something so real to them that then got diluted over time, or diluted by empty ceremony and empty ritual. That, like, the character talking about how like Jesus couldn't survive in church with the pastor up on the rockless pulpit or whatever. And like, that's sort of how I approach, if I read something that touches me, regardless if it's, a Muslim writer or a Jewish writer or a Christian writer or an atheist writer, I feel like there's like this, there's some sort of thread that attracts me to all of these sorts of things that feels like truth to me, regardless of if it's under the umbrella of a certain creed.
And well, I can see that. My guess would be because when these writers if you're writing about divinity and faith in any form, usually that's quite true to that person. Like people who have faith in something are usually passionate about it, care about it. I mean, even if you're so, it's hard to articulate sometimes, but I think that people who have the faith in something and are passionate about it, that's going to come through in the writing and affect us, regardless of whether we subscribe to that same faith or not. We can recognize the deep sort of love that they have for what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
So you, as the author, is the mermaid Jesus, or was it just a mermaid, or was it even there?
I think it was just a mermaid, but I don't know if she was real or not.
Yeah.
And that's some of the most profound experiences in my life. I still question the concrete reality of it. I know that they were real. Now, would my experience, like, if there was a camera on the mermaid and the character, would the camera pick up the mermaid? Yeah. I don't know. But does that make the mermaid not real?
That's a very interesting philosophical question, because that character is going to go about the rest of their life as if the mermaid was real. Their actions will reflect a real mermaid. And doesn't that almost make it real? It had a real effect on a person and on other people as they branch out acting this way.
And I believe in subjectivity, and I think imagination and dreams come from a certain place that is the same as like people's mystical experiences throughout time. And regardless if those experiences are something concrete and objective in this material plane, I don't think that they're unreal. They could be even more real than, there's like cars driving past my window right now. Like that reality is less real to me than maybe the dream I had last night,
That makes sense, which is it's kind of a trippy way to think about it.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's very interesting and absolutely. So yeah, having that come across in the writing is very neat. So where do you get your ideas from? You got your automatic writing, and the ideas strike you. But is there some sort of source that you ascribed to it, or is it truly random? Have you noticed a pattern in when your creativity strikes, or because you mentioned there's a theme in all your writing where love and death and that kind of thing touches on it. Is that the well that you dig, or how would you articulate that?
I honestly I couldn't really put words to it, which is funny because it's all about putting words to it. But it's like it is a very clear feeling, and it's this visceral, like there's something that happens, and my brain will start moving in a certain way, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just like whatever it is, I can feel it. I recognize it. It's a presence that I've tapped into enough throughout my life that I know when it's there and I know how to use it. And it's worked so far. So
yeah, absolutely.
Keep trying.
So you don't have, one of my questions here that I have is, do you have a favorite place to write? Because a lot of people, they prefer their room at home, or they go to a coffee shop that they like. But for you, it sounds like you don't even have that option to choose a favorite place, or is there a pattern to the places that your inspiration strikes?
So I just got back from New Mexico actually yesterday. So I finally got sleep last night, but I'm a little, just did a bunch of traveling. I was visiting my dear friend just got married out there on Sunday. And a lot of us old friends get together out there every year and play music and just sort of share life and art and whatever. But I've also lived out on this property in northern New Mexico several times over the last 8 years, and that is my well of inspiration out there. Like the work I have, Cosmo and Ruse, that I'm my longest work that hopefully will be in print one of these days, was primarily written out there. It was all fleshed out there. The beginning was somewhere else, the end was somewhere else, but there's something special about that place, and it's there's not houses around. You're out really in the woods, and so I'd hike the ridge every day and ride up there. For me, I definitely find most of my inspiration out in nature. I find it difficult to sit down. I never write on a computer unless I'm typing up what I have in my notes or whatever. But I do write out in the woods. I'll go walking in the woods, or I'll go out to there's some little river spots, and the ocean's just a couple miles from here. But yeah, just being outside primarily. And sometimes it catches me. I'll be walking my dog, and I got to stop on the side of the road with cars going past and pull out. I find an old napkin in there and a pencil, and I just write. I try to fill in whatever I can. It comes on unexpectedly. But I'm trying to get better at harnessing it in. And for example, with this writing, I pretty much read the prompt and then just sat down and started writing. So it was able to spark that same feeling.
Right. You're trying to get control over the trigger that can begin it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so question, if you mentioned sorry, I didn't catch the place name, but the place where you said was the real well. where a lot of that inspiration, where the majority of the Cosmo and Rue's story was written. Where was that again?
In Sapeo, New Mexico. It's
Sapeo, New Mexico. Do you
just a
think that
little-
if if you had the ability, if you had the freedom to do whatever you wanted, if you went out there to just like live there for a year or however
Yeah.
it would work, do you think that that inspiration would continue and be potent as you continued on, or do you think it would wane off as you maybe got too accustomed to the place? Just out of
Uh,
curiosity.
Man, that place is always calling me back. And every time I'm there, I feel there's just something, and it's not just me. Like all my buddies that we sort of circulate around that area, there's just there's something magic going on there. And maybe it's all of the support and that collective just drive towards creativity. But it's also just this. I've spent a good amount of time out there. Last time I was out there for an extended period was like 4 months in 2019, and every day it was that way. My buddy Preston was out there, and we would have 20-minute writing sessions every day where we would just look at separate areas of the little A-frame cabin we're in and just sit down and silently write. And we would do this every day. And like, so having that little practice, and so I guess, yeah, I that is another time that I actually was able to focus in that way.
I was just thinking that sounds almost contradictory to your regular routine, where you actually were consistent and sat down to do it every day, but you're attributing it to sort of this place where inspiration runs more strongly.
Yeah. Well, so for me in general, I got to be like in deep nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me if there's a bunch of houses around, cars going by, and you kind of get, or even just routine. Routine is like tough for me. Routine is like chains. Like it's good to like consistently like have a roof over your head and pay bills and do whatever, but just that little change. Like I used to like hitchhike all over and sort of lived like the traveling, sleeping under the stars, never knowing where I was going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
For a bunch of years, and creativity was just always like a presence there.
Mm-hmm.
So the last couple of years that I've been more settled in one place, I have to find new ways of like it's less consistent.
Yeah,
but it's still strong when it comes out. It's like it's nice to be reminded that you always have that inside of you, and it's not just where you're at.
Yeah, this does make me curious though. What do you, if your routine is anathema to you, what do you do to pay the bills, keep the roof over your head, and keep yourself fed?
Yeah.
Good.
Just like a lot of like random like manual labor gigs. Lately I was working with this carpenter that was kind of taking me under his wing and teaching me since like last October. But it was just that was like an hour away, and gas was getting crazy. I was spending like $120 a week just going to work and back. So before that, I did a lot of like landscaping and gardening. So I have like some people that will hit me up and I'll do random jobs for that.
So it actually does give you a bit of variety. So while it's sort of routine, it's not
going to
9 to 5 at the cubicle kind of thing.
Well, yeah, and I just quit this job. I decided, I was like, I just need to get something close by, and I got a job at this shed building factory. And so I got hair in my mouth there. I ended up like shooting a nail right through my thumb.
Oh, geez.
And there's all these things. I was like, is this really worth the $20 an hour to like get by to just beat the hell out of my body?
Yeah.
So honestly, like, yeah, that was another hugely satisfying element of winning this contest and part of the reason why I entered the contest was like, I just can't like, I can't just keep doing this manual labor, paycheck to paycheck, killing myself just to get by, sort of thing. So I just sort of looked up and was like, I wonder, I have a knack for writing. I wonder if I can start just try to, to
Yeah.
shoot.
And I mean, heck, if this is the, one of your first submissions and you succeeded in not only getting published, but winning a contest, it hopefully gives you the drive to find more, seek out more, and make a go of it.
Yeah, lit a fire for sure. So thank you for that.
Well, that's I mean, that's what we're here to do. Is it's my passion, is trying to help new writers succeed. And one of my favorite things about doing this business is the amount of writers that come to me and say how great of an initiative it is and how much it affected them, and spurred them on and gave them the confidence to keep trying and keep writing. Yeah. It's amazing how demotivating it is to submit and submit and submit and write and write and write and not have anybody give you feedback or validation, published, things like that. And publishing isn't the be all and the end all. If you got to write, you got to write anyway, but it would be nice to, some people have struggle with keeping the motivation without sort of some feedback. So that's why writing in groups and having a community around it can be so beneficial. And that's, what the ultimate goal of Elegant Literature is, to kind of prop you up and do that.
Yes. Supporting the arts is awesome. It's a really, really cool thing that you have going here. And I really appreciate it. And I will, I'll always be making art. Making art comes easy. It's like, it's inevitable, it's like, it's the most important thing in life to me is hanging out in the woods, having a good group of friends and making art, whether, you're a painter, a musician, or a writer, just to like tap into whatever that is and just be pure and true about it. But man, yeah, it'd be really nice if I get to the point that I could be making art and paying the bills rather than paying bills and then making art. So thanks for covering my rent this month.
That's hot. That's definitely the goal. So I wanted to ask you about the other thing that you were working on. You mentioned a longer work, the Cosmo and Ruse. What is that? Can you talk about it first of all?
Yeah, it's a story that primarily deals with love, loss, and madness. Those seem to be the themes here. It's like it's in 5 parts, and it's just these 2 characters, and they're coming together, they're drifting apart, and their whole world, how it blends and how it shifts, and yeah, it's sort of I was able to explore a lot of different like ways of writing. There's a section that's entirely just one character's journals, and that's a lot more similar to like how I write. So it's like less and this is the first time I've ever experimented with like coming back to characters and stuff. So that gave me a place to do like little stories, like because I have other stories that are like the length of A Tale of a Fish, that are just short and sweet and get everything you need out of it. You don't need to like beat those characters to death. You don't need to pull more out of that. But I wanted them to have a home. So I put a couple of those into the journals section, and there's a section, part 4, that's all letters from the character Ruse to the character Cosmo, and she has this like more beautiful, childlike, playful voice, and so I was able to more like sort of have fun with that. But yeah, that was really cool, and that was the same thing. Like I didn't set out to write a long piece. It was just that when that inspiration would come, it kept being their voices. And after 13, 14 pages of it, I was like, okay, these characters, Cosmo and Ruse, they keep coming back. Why don't I just sit and listen and see what they have to say? And they kept pouring out. and yeah, and there was a time there where it was just, it really took form, and I'm at the point where I'm pretty much happy with how it is. Pretty much haven't touched it in like a year.
Mhm.
Finished it like last right before my 30th birthday, which was last September. So about a year ago, was right when I finished. So right when I put the last word down of the creative process, and then there was editing and cutting stuff and whatever.
That was my next question, is how does your editing process work with your automatic writing? Like, are you able to sit down and edit something
Yeah.
without, in a routine way more than you are able to write it? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm pretty critical of myself with editing. So when I'm writing, I have like delusions of grandeur, and I'm like, "This is great. You are killing it with every word." And and then I'll come back and I'll be like, "Oh, this is so stupid. How did I think this was like so good?" And I'll just slash things. If I think like, even if I remember writing it and remember being enthusiastic about it, if I think it's garbage, then I'll just cut it. But then a lot of times I'll spend like an hour just changing one word back and forth, and like pick one word, be like, no, that's not the right word. And so I'll do that sort of like the whole time coming along. I have no problem throwing something out that I've written if I don't think that it's up to a certain standard that I've set for myself, maybe an unrealistic standard. But fortunately, I had a couple friends that were willing to read it, that I was able to send to and get critical feedback on, which was really nice to, because it's hard to self-edit.
But you can't catch everything. You're blind to it. And I mean, there's plenty of strategies that you can use, like changing the font, printing it out, reading it on different mediums to try and help.
Mhm.
And using some systems to help with catching everything, but you just can't, like, you'll never get it into the best shape it can be on your own, right?
Well, and one thing that was really cool when I had my friend read it, and she's a lawyer, so she's like, she was great at just like, this word is wrong, this word is not in this, or little like grammatical things. But then she also read it as a reader, and she proposed questions that were like, oh, is it this person saying it, or is it the other? That in my mind, because I had read it and I knew the character so well, it was so obvious who was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to have like an external reader, where then you can see like questions through someone else's mind that maybe you didn't have, that you couldn't see because you're so familiar with the story yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, that's the hardest thing, is like stepping back and getting a little objectivity in writing.
It's interesting to hear you talk about all this, because it sounds like you're quite mystical about your writing process, and then
Yeah.
very practical about your editing.
Yeah.
Very interesting
You got to
juxtaposition.
blend the two,
Yeah.
I'm usually up in the cosmos, but like you got to get grounded as well. Find that nice balance.
Yeah. That's very interesting. It's really great for me to hear. That's a different perspective than most people I speak to don't have this sort of method. Do you find that it's common with your friends in the circle that you run with, and in your creative circles, or are you still a bit of an outlier, but unique in the way you approach your creativity, even with everybody else that you work with?
Man, no, all my friends are like, they're all my favorite artists, and they're all just like the most inspiring people, and I'm inspired to make better art because of them. Everyone works in their own way, and I think the main thing is just making art, just creating things, and being true. Not trying to make something that looks or sounds or feels like someone else,
Mm-hmm.
but just like whatever you create, let that be your creation. I mean, I have friends that will take one thing and work on it for 10 years, and I have other friends that will put stuff out every couple weeks, every couple months, or whatever. And the theme is just sticking to yourself and creating and being, and celebrating that, and I'm fortunate that I have like a community of dear friends and dear artists that inspire me all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's one of the best
Shout out
things.
to all of them. And
Shout out to them. It's one of the best things that you can have as a creator is other creators to collaborate with and to keep you motivated, keep you inspired, and keep that energy going, right? So you're obviously a very like multidisciplinary type person, very creative person. Is music and writing sort of the main two creative outlets that you use, or are there others, painting, anything like that?
no, music and writing, and no, I'm a terrible painter. I can't like, dude, I have things in my head that I would love to be able to draw, and I just cannot do it. So I'm so impressed with like anyone that can draw, paint, whatever, like that blows my mind. Because I cannot do it at all. I would love to, but yeah, and even with my music, like, I mean, I'm a decent musician. I think I'm pretty good, but I know a lot of people that are way better.
You can't compare yourself to all the people that are better than you. Like, you can't like not pick up a guitar because you'll never be Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. But I think writing is definitely my strongest suit, and that's what makes my music interesting, is the lyrical component of it. Like I can hold a tune or whatever, but it's the story or the philosophy or whatever I'm trying to get across that makes it more interesting. So writing is my, like, it's like my magic talisman or whatever.
Yeah, right. Writing is the core, and music can be an outlet for it.
Yeah, and it's great to have that. Like, I mean, I love music, but it's great to like pair the two together.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you see yourself ideally, in a perfect world, if in a year from now, what would you like to see yourself doing?
Hanging out with the homies, running around the woods, making art.
So no dreams of becoming a professional novelist or like the front man for a famous band, or
I would love to do any of those things. Yeah, so I actually kind of dream about being like the kind of guy behind the scenes, like writing. There's this guy Max Martin who records all of the hits for all these pop stars for like 20 plus years. I'd love to do something like that, be kind of behind the scenes, but manufacturing the art out into the world. But writing anything, man, like I would love to be able to actually be publishing stuff and not, I just want to make art full time and explore the world around me. I'm not like a job oriented dude. Not at all. I mean, I do that just to like, because I have to get by, and it's just getting by. But yeah, art's the driving force, and in a perfect world, yeah, that's what I would be doing is just making art and hanging out with my friends and exploring the woods. Yeah. So I try to do as much of that as possible. I try to be, pretty happy with what I'm doing. And it's just, it gets pretty dark when you're at that point and you're just having to like grind away, working all the time just to pay the bills and being so exhausted that you're not creating.
Yeah, absolutely. That's happened for me for years. As before elegant literature, I was, I would write, I would have creative bursts. I wrote half a novel in like 10 days. And then I needed money. So I went and I got a job bartending, which is long hours, late nights, tired the next day. And then you're back at work 5 days, 6 days a week sometimes. And, I didn't write anything for 8 months at least. So totally. I completely relate to, having those hard jobs that exhaust you too much to really get that creative.
Yeah, and the time limitation, like you're saying, just even the 5-6 days a week of just like knowing you have to be somewhere at a certain time, day in, day out, like I can't do it.
Just sweating just talking about it.
Yeah. That's why I do like random manual labor stuff, is because I have the freedom to, I'll go do some landscaping for my buddy. I'll do whatever, but I can go disappear for a week. If I'm like, there's no way I can work for the next 4 days. Like my brain just can't handle it. Then I can do that. But I would love to be able to do that full time. Just, just be able to create.
Yeah, absolutely. So another question for you is, I mean, you probably have some writer heroes. So if you could pick one author, one writer, famous or otherwise, that you could get a chance to meet, who would you like to get introduced to?
Man, meeting, I don't know. I think James Joyce would be like pretty boring dude to hang out with, but I love James Joyce. I'm a huge Joyce fan. I just went to Dublin on June 16th for Bloomsday, which is their annual celebration of James Joyce and Ulysses, his novel that all takes place during one day, which is June 16th. And it was published in 1922. So I went out for the 100th anniversary. Big Joyce fan. I love his experimentation of the English language. And he just, some of those lines they'll just transport you. So one of my biggest influences for sure. But I guess for people you'd want to hang out with, maybe Alfred Jarry. He loved drinking absinthe and riding a unicycle around. He's a pretty weird dude. He was an absurdist. And I think he came up with the concept of pataphysics, which is as far away from metaphysics as metaphysics is from regular physics.
What?
Yeah. Alfred Jarry, he's a kooky dude. I think I got this was one of his books. Alfred Jarry, the Dr. Faustral pataphysician.
I'll have to look into him. I have not actually heard of Alfred Jarry, so
yeah. I mean, just maybe not my favorite writer, but
be a wild time to
spend a day with. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. It's fantastic. So we're pretty much done here. I just wanted to ask you, and I know you're a new, this is your first submission, first acceptance, but you won an award. And even though you're still new, do you have any words of advice that you'd want to share with other new writers looking for, starting out in their journey, even similar to you? It doesn't have to be, it's not like you have to have the ages of wisdom or anything like that, but what kind of advice might you give to anybody that's watching this video that's made it this far through the whole thing and wants to hear more of you speak?
Yeah. Oh, dude, if you're out there, if you listen to this whole thing, props. But I mean, just read and just be honest. Like, don't try to sound like anyone else. But be inspired. And some of the best things I've especially early on writing, I used to read with a notebook next to me, and some line that I would read would inspire some thought process that then I could transfer in, and then I would just get going writing based on that, the inspiration of what I was reading in the moment. And
that's really interesting. You go from reading and it just like a line inspires you and you just jump straight into writing.
Yeah. Like a lot of philosophy, like there's a period I was really into Nietzsche, and I would always read him with a journal next to me, because it would inspire some thought. And then you create more of like a dialogue with what you're reading as well. Mm-hmm. Passing the torch back and forth of creativity.
Yeah. Definitely would help you to like absorb it and learn it better too, whatever you're reading, remember it, and actually cement it as an experience rather than forget about it 20 minutes after you read it.
Yeah, totally. And then even like, I mean, I don't have a great memory for like retaining stuff, so I'll underline stuff in books, so that I can come back and be like, why was this book influential to me? but to be writing alongside a book is another way to do that. I'll read a passage that I wrote, and I'll then remember the passage that I was reading at the time of writing that, without having given it a thought, maybe in years in between those things. But yeah, just surround yourself in the things that inspire you, and you will be inspired.
That is fantastic advice. I love it. So congratulations again on winning the Elegant Literature Award for New Writers. It's 3,000 grand prize for you, and a seat in the new Novelist Accelerator, which is my course, should you desire it. We'll talk about that later. Sweet. But for now, congratulations. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Super cool. And I'm very, very grateful. So thank you.
I look forward to seeing what you do with your writing career in the years to come. So
yeah, hopefully this is just the first.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Sweet. Bye. Thank you.
And